Good morning. My name is Justin Lincoln. My pronouns are he, him. And I'd like to invite Autumn up to the chancel.
Wait.
What?
May I? Sorry. We'll get to that in a second, but before we light our chalice, today we're going to spend some time thinking about why we do things. We're going to think about that in real time as they happen. So as we process through our service today, I'll be giving some commentary on the why of our many liturgical activities. The order of service, by the way, the order of service, the order in which we do things is also known as a liturgy. And liturgy is a fancy word, I guess, that means work of the people. So our Sunday services are your work, okay? For that reasons and others, I'll often refer to our service as practice. We're practicing in this work. And my ongoing commentary on today's liturgy will also stand as my reflection, so you don't need to get too nervous about time. My hope is that in delving into the work of our practice, you will come to a more meaningful engagement with what we're doing here every Sunday. The first thing we do is light our chalice. The lighting of our chalice is the formal signal that sacred time has begun. So right now it's not sacred time, so if you want to go crazy, I guess you can. All right, it's the one ritual you'll find performed in every UU church across the land. It is an ancient ritual, began way back in the dusty 1980s. The chalice actually has a unique distinction among ritualistic accoutrements of originating as a logo. This is like unique in religious history. Our primary ritual originated as a logo. Not a symbol even, but a logo. It was designed by a graphic artist, right? It was designed by a graphic artist at the request of the Unitarian Service Committee, who was at the time smuggling Jews outside Europe, right, to safety outside of Germany. And they needed a seal to make their transportation documents more impressive and more easily accepted. So they reached out to this graphic artist. He designed this chalice shape that recalled the shape of a Christian cross while evoking the cup, a feminine symbol tracing back and maybe even forwards to our pagan roots as humans. So it's a bit of visual poetry, in a sense, blending the sacred feminine and masculine shapes. The logo did not make the jump off the page and onto the altar until the last half of last century. And no one is entirely sure how that happened. The best research that I've heard suggests that it actually began in religious education when they would light a candle to signal the beginning of class. And then when youth came in here to lead the service, they brought that ritual with them. So it's appropriate, I think, that we have a young person light our chalice. That is significant in that it harkens to the history of how this ritual came to be. It harkens to the wisdom and leadership of children in our tradition. So as we light the chalice, we connect with UUs throughout the world who are doing that very same thing today, some right now, Although if they're on time, they've probably already done it because I've been up here talking for a while. But normally it's right about the same time across the Front Range, all across the country. UUs are lighting this chalice. And in doing that, we are connecting with each other. We are practicing the art of shifting our consciousness from the mundane to the sacred, from the automatic to the intentional. It is an exercise of connection with the past, with the interconnected web of life and our tradition, with ourselves, and even with the future. So bringing these together is a manipulation of our sense of time and an invitation to timelessness. So I want you to know that when we light the chalice, we are entering a new kind of time, a timeless kind of time in which the minister can talk and talk and talk, and you won't notice it. So once sacred time is invoked, the first thing that happens here is that I make a proclamation of who we are. We are All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church. And it's not that the initiation of sacred time makes us who we are, or its later extinguishing dissolves who we are, but the flame focuses us on who and how we are. And then after that, we move into what I call the call to all souls. That call names who we are, acknowledges where we are and the people that were here before us, and explicitly welcomes and centers historically marginalized folks. It also functions, I suppose, as a bit of an appetizer, preparing us for what comes next. Now, it's an ongoing question as to whether the call should be within sacred time or before we light the chalice. And it's not like there's a wrong answer, which is true of a lot of these choices that we've made to construct this practice. But for each answer will create a slightly different effect, and that effect adds up. And that's the thing. All of this, and this is what I really want you to know, all of the stuff that we do here on Sundays is working on us. Where items are on the chancel, the order of the action, the kind of action, symbols and key signatures, they are working on us explicitly or subconsciously. They work whether my reflection is mind-blowing or mind-numbing. They work whether we are aware of them or not. My hope is that by making you all a little more aware of them, by drawing attention to them today, that they become ever more meaningful. And so, with apologies for the interruption, turn you back over to Justin. We are All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church. I am Reverend Ron Phares. My pronouns are he, him. In the fall and lead up to solstice, we spent considerable energy reminding ourselves in this deep midwinter that the light would return. In fact, we modeled that return, both following and being the star that promises life and long days of abundance. Indeed, we still have a long ways to go before that is true atmospherically, some time yet before the promise is fulfilled. And so we abide in the newly empty chambers of our homes and souls, and we wait for the sun. It's not entirely passive, this waiting. It's a time right now of return and renewal, a new year. It's a time to take stock and to evaluate, to understand where you are, where you want to be, and to adjust or affirm as needed. It's a time to be at home in the most fundamental of ways. And so, to begin again, to return, to renew, may I suggest right now that we begin with an equally fundamental and metaphorically relevant practice of breathing. We'll do that box breathing that we did a couple weeks ago. So you breathe in 4 counts, hold for 4, breathe out in 4, hold for 4, breathe in 4. So breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, deep breath in, just let it go. One more deep breath in, and with a big ah, sigh it out. That breath is your doorway home. It is sacred, it is shared, it has moved through tree and shrub and critter, through each other, and all those who have tended and been tended by this land for millennia. The Ute, Comanche, Arapaho, Apache, Cheyenne, Kiowa, Pawnee, and Lakota, and now you as well. Like breath, may this gathering be a shared and reciprocal source of vitality and comfort. We welcome all souls here. We especially want to make sure that those who have historically been made to feel unwelcome in various places and times, our Black and brown siblings, our trans and queer kin, know that this place, you are not only welcomed, but you are celebrated for the glorious and heartfelt full person you are, and in fact, that goes for each one of you. And here just isn't here. Here extends all the way to our remote viewers joining from home. Can we give them a salutation? Hello, thank you for coming. Also, quick reminder, after service on all the screens will be a QR code. You could take a sort of picture of that. It'll open up the newsletter. There's all kinds of good information in the newsletter. Adult programming is about to ramp up. You've got those hopefully in the pews there. So pay attention to those and the other things that are in the newsletter. We are here, we are at home. This is our home, and now we get to work on our home because this is practice. We are a community returning, renewing, becoming. Let us announce that community in song.
Good morning. I am so glad to see all of you here this morning.
Oh wait, Molly.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to, before we tell the story, I want to connect us with why we do this as part of our Sunday services. Now, we've got 4 storytelling components. We've got our bone stories, which are roughly towards the beginning and roughly towards the end of the month. It's the same story, and that is so that we hear it told from 2 different points of view. And that gives you permission to work your own perspective into that myth story. And over time, hopefully those myths will begin to take root in us as we ground them to the seasons and become a sort of frame for our engagement. We also have Foundations of Our Faith, which is a story that Molly tells about the history of our faith. And then we've got story time where we just read a book. And oftentimes the kids come up, sometimes they stay here. It's intended to be accessible, all of these stories, accessible to youngsters. But here's the thing that I really want to emphasize. This is not a moment to have kids on parade, right? I'm very sensitive to that. It's a moment for us all to understand a message with beginner's mind, right? With the mind of a child, which we still possess and have access to. And the kids can get something out of it for sure, and I hope that we all can as well. So, with that said, Molly. So this is normally when we do joys and concerns, time permitting. This activity, of course, knits us closer as a community, allows us to celebrate with one another. Sometimes it breaks our heart, and we connect through our compassion. It's an important and beloved practice, and yet it is also the case that its success is a function of attendance. The more people come, the more participate, the longer it lasts. And this is one of those practices that, however beloved, does have a point of diminishing returns in terms of duration. And we are nearing that point. So we'll likely be working on that puzzle and moving into a different method of expressing our joys and sorrows in sometime in the near future. We'll honor the function and need that this current method holds, and letting that moment be appropriately shaped and balanced by our other liturgical needs. So that's coming, I don't know when, at some point, and we will learn our way through it, how to do it best. In fact, our congregation is awash with ministerial experience. Could I have my colleagues please stand up? So these fine and wise people will be around after the service for some informal processing and listening. We have Reverend Julia, Reverend Ellen, and Sonia, who is a chaplain. So if you need to talk to somebody after service, we're just going to be hanging out. Please make yourself known to one of these folks, and they're happy to hear from you. Okay, you all can sit down. Thank you.
Wow, I had no idea I was going to be following that. Can I go on? You did. Okay. So I was asked to reflect on and talk about the role of ritual in my life. Several years ago, I decided to start practicing and learning about yoga. I soon realized that going to a studio once a week was not going to be sufficient, and that the process would need to involve a regular practice. It was a physical practice, followed by breath work and meditation. I crafted a comfortable and predictable routine that our dog, Scarlet, often joined me in. Rick, is that picture available? The eventual ritual helped me to establish, among other things, a habit of inner listening. But over the course of time, it turned into kind of a mindless routine, then into kind of a rut. I knew I needed to adjust the practice, but I wasn't sure how to do that. Then, for some reason, after months had passed since the black lab had died, we decided to get a puppy. In fact, I woke up one morning with the iPad next to my head, the screen facing me, with a picture of the puppy that we'd get from the Humane Society later that day. Though we had done some research, we really had no idea how much energy and work would go into having an Australian cattle dog. Is that next picture? Thank you. We welcomed Bindi into our family, and I've since come to think of her as kind of a bodhisattva. Suddenly, what was a daily yoga practice happened only once a week. At first, I was kind of dismayed by this. I gradually realized, though, that she was showing me how to adjust my practice, how to adapt my rituals. At this point, she's not at all interested in practicing yoga with me. Well, it's not quite true. She very much wants to be in there with me, to chew on me, to chew up the mat. However, she teaches me all of the time about patience, presence, and of course, non-attachment. Non-attachment to material things, to things I might want, and yes, to routines. Bindi has helped me to remember and experience that there's so much more to practicing yoga than what I was doing. There's service, self-study, setting intentions, so much more. She's both mischievous and marvelous, maddening and magical. She embodies the coexistence of seeming opposites. It now seems so ironic that meditation practice is often compared to training a puppy. There's much that I've learned through this process. For one, I recognize in a deep experiential way that rituals are important and that they must be flexible. Otherwise, it's easy for rituals to become mindless routines and then ruts. Also, we're now familiar with what bluey is, and I'm still practicing yoga, just in a different way. And as Reverend Ron has often talked about, the offering is one such ritual.
Wait.
Oh, I knew it was going to happen.
I'll make this quick. Although, what's your dog's name?
Bindi.
Bindi. So if you all want to change in the liturgy, like Bindi wanted to change, and you start chewing on the pews, I don't know that I will refer to you as a bodhisattva. So we're about to do the offering, right? And this is an opportunity, of course, for us to support the work of the congregation and the organizations that we sometimes partner with. Obviously, that's true. But it's also a moment, like this is the work of the people. This is the work. It's also a moment to practice generosity. Think of this as a spiritual practice. This moment is a spiritual practice. It's something that orients your mind, your body, and your soul. So the hope is when the bowl or the basket goes by that you take the opportunity to let that generosity occupy your body, to physically enact it so that it contributes to the creation of a generous mindset and to your own sense of abundance.
It's been said that, I can't even talk. It's been said that ritual is poetry in action. Now is your chance to meaningfully mark your religious practice the same way that poetry elevates language. The options for giving are on the title slide on the screens above me. They're also being posted in the chat on Zoom.
So our reflection today will be brief, as I've already spoken quite a bit. This is normally where the reflection is. I do want to, I call it a reflection, right? Because I hope that feels a little bit more invitational to you, because I have been reflecting on a topic during the week. I reflect on it in writing, and now I reflect on it in public. And the offer for you is also to reflect on it. So whereas a sermon feels to me anyway, like it's me talking at you, a reflection feels like it's something that we're kind of doing together. So we are all reflecting on this together. We are all active listeners, right? Okay. I want to touch really quickly on the architecture of the chancel. This area up here is called a chancel, not a stage, This isn't a performance in that way. This is a chancel. If we had a play up here, then we'd call it a stage. Same thing could be different things. Okay, so this is a chancel, and of course, our altar. And I want to especially first tell you that I'd like to locate the pulpit to the side of the chancel rather than the center. It's not because I like these people more than I like you. Well, it's not only because I like you people more than it's because it decenters the minister. It's a congregational hazard to center the minister. I am admittedly an important facet of this system and this tradition, I hope. But I am not, nor should I be, and do not want to be the center. So this is expressed symbolically by setting the pulpit off to one side. The center, rather, is occupied by symbols that speak to theology, tradition, and community. These rest on our altar. Altar is not a word that I feel like we should be afraid of. It's a table on which we place and display sacred artifacts. Artifacts, that is, that are rife with meaning. And that's in the center. Theologically, we have fire, water, and earth, and air, which works with fire. These are the four general elements and imply and speak to a scaffolding underneath them of chemistry and also of soul. So I find these elements to be theologically inclusive, given their necessity for life, their applicability to poetics, and their lend themselves to spiritual reflection. Earth, air, water, fire, these are ancient, well-known poetic touch points. They symbolically embody our planet. They have the power of water and the flow of water, the transformative light of fire, the germinating and supportive strength of the earth and air, our breath, ruach, and spiritu, pneuma, an invisible pathway to the spirit and into presence. That's what is in the center. In putting them on the altar, we honor our earth-based roots, we honor Mother Earth, we tip the hat to science, and we welcome the spirit. But of course, that's sort of like in a really general, highly metaphorical way. But this water also represents our mingled community. It was gathered during our water communion. Our character is symbolized by this water. And that earth over there, that represents our creative coexistence, our interior lives as we gather that soil during our soil communion. And while the water and soil are of our community, the fire connects us with our tradition, as we talked about earlier, and it represents the light of innovation, imagination, hope, compassion, curiosity. It is fed by our breath and spirit. So that's the center, the theology, our community, and our tradition. Now, all liturgies are designed to convey meaning, consciously or otherwise. And there are many, many kinds of liturgies. Each one has a shape to it, a form, and in that form, a method fed by meaning. It's a method of connection, it's a method of practice, and it hinges on meaning. There are several liturgies that we can explore together, and in time, we may well do so. But generally, I like to set a liturgical pattern and stick to it. If things are to have meaning, they also, I think, need some consistency. Now, we don't want to get in a rut, and when we do, someone will chew on a pew. But I like it to be consistent because meaning needs consistency. And then when we break that pattern for ceremony or for a particular need, that break itself takes on more significance. So that said, while we'll keep this present liturgy for a while, it won't be forever. When we do make a change, please know that there's quite a bit of thought and intention behind it. The service leaders and I hash it out, explore the meaning of it. So when we do make that change, I'll try to part the curtain and let you all know the why. Because I want this to be meaningful to you. I want, beyond the words that I or the service leaders speak here, you still get meaning out of this practice of coming to church on Sundays. So, hopefully, we accomplished that a little bit today. Hopefully, you know a little bit more about why we do what we do. And if you already knew it, hopefully, you've re-grounded to it, because it's a very important thing. I was actually, sorry, Wendell Berry, I was looking at a screen the other day, my Facebook, and the feed came up with Adam Driver talking about the difference between civilian life and military life, because he was a Marine. One of the things that he was saying was that when he was a Marine, everything, like your tie had to be a certain number of inches and everything had to be just so. And that every single thing that he did in the military had meaning. I was like, whoa. He's like, when I got out of the military, I lost all my meaning. And it really drove home how profoundly important it is not only to get your tie right, which you'll never see me do, by the way, but I take my meaning in other places. We have this just so, we have this just so, and each bit of that conveys a meaning that I hope lives in you as well, and that now you know why things are where they are and why we do things in a certain way, that this practice has even more meaning for you. To close, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn 1018. So stay standing for the benediction here. Look, this is a very heart-opened time in our congregation right now, right? We've experienced some tragedy. We are here together. What I want to say to you is that we can ground ourselves in facts, but also ground ourselves in this liturgy and practice and community. This is a place to find meaning, community, and a place to stand, sit, be, talk, sing. Together, we'll make a land. Huh?